Okay, let's do it.
All right. And with that, we come to the beginning of the Friday FARCast. I'm Robert Phoenix. What's happening out there, everybody? We've got a beautiful blue sky with regular old cirrus clouds right here in Austin, Texas. It feels just like the 20th century. You know what's really interesting is I'm looking at a box for GTC light bulbs. GTC is a generic brand that is, I believe, an HEB brand. I don't know. HEB is the Harry Butt store down here in Texas. Harry E. Butt. GTC may be in other stores. I just get it at Harry Butt. And I'm looking at the side of the box, and it's a light bulb. And guess what's behind the light bulb? It looks like rays of light, slightly, in a sky blue background. Those are chemtrails behind the light bulb. There are no chemtrails here today, thank God. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Lord, we thank you today because there are no chemtrails in our sky. It is the same cerulean blue as it was on the very first day of creation, when Adam and Eve roamed about the Garden of Eden, oblivious to their self-conscious awareness and their surroundings. They were pure will, unmanifest, Lord. And today is the same day, the very same day, every day. It is the Garden of Eden in the fall all over again. And it is through your grace, your loving grace, that we are able to be redeemed with every act of humanity that takes us out of our preternatural relationship with the divine. And so, Lord, as we get on our hands and knees, then we crawl into the kingdom of heaven. We are raised up by your light, by your love, by your loving grace. Hand in hand, we return, conscious, aware, through the gates of perdition, in the garden of evil. We thank you, Lord. I don't know what got over me. Sometimes you just got to let these things come out. What's happening out there? There's a lot going on in the world. You hear that? That is what we call a synchronicity. And a synchronicity is something that happens in real time that seems like it's a coincidence, but there's more going on in that moment. We got the spiritual punctuation, as it were. We're going to get into George Webb a little bit today. Sometimes I get on these things. And sometimes I there are sacred cows at times, and I just maybe it's just the Uranus in me. My Uranus in the 9th house, which is basically disruptive, trine my Jupiter. And I get into these places where it's like all of a sudden I kind of get slightly, I wouldn't say obsessed, but there's certain things I can't let go of. And I can't shake the fact, and I've been watching George, and look, there are a lot of people, in one of my favorite listeners and I were emailing before the show today, and she was telling me about the merits of George Webb, and this is a person whom I really, 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 really like, and I'm trying to integrate the George Webb information. He's been arrested, by the way. I just found this out. And of course, people who are following George Webb's YouTube videos probably know this already. But he was arrested, and he's been arrested for drunken driving. Now, apparently, according to George Webb, or people who are following the Webb. Should we just call him the Webb? Let's dispense with the George. Let's just call him the Webb. As people have been following the Webb, or people that have or do follow the Webb, they say that it's all a very sophisticated ploy to get in front of a jury so that they can present the information on the Awan brothers. That would be quite something, wouldn't it? Well, I'm not sure the jury would find the evidence, or the judge would find the evidence admissible, especially if he's there for drunk driving or driving while under the influence of alcohol. And I don't know. Just seems odd. Just seems odd. For those of you who don't know who George Webb is, or the Webb, as I like to call him, the Webb, he has been doggedly pursuing the truth in the murder of Seth Rich, Hillary Clinton, Dynacor, organ harvesting, trafficking, human trafficking. He is been the tip of the spear through this ongoing series of very informal videos where it feels like you're on this case of it almost feels like a Da Vinci Code kind of journey in some ways. I've been watching the videos. They're very interesting because there's such a sense of informality. It's like you're right there. You're part of this ongoing investigation. It's actually brilliant, I have to say. It's almost like a serial. Back in the old days, you go to a movie, and they would have these serials. I didn't go because I was too young, but my father told me about them. You can still watch them. A lot of them were made by a company called American International. And these would be about 5-minute to 7-minute mini movies. And you would watch it, and then next week when you'd go back for another movie, during the intermission, they'd have about three of these serials, and part 2 would be next, and part 3 and part 4. And then over time, what they would do is they'd put it all together, and there'd be a movie. That's how they were shot. Anyway, this is along the same lines. It's very compelling because you can't wait for the next video. It's like, oh my God, where's this going? Where's this going? It's like a real-time mystery that's being unraveled. And it's quite good in terms of its effectiveness. Now, that said, where is it all going? Where is it all going, and who is George Webb? Now, George Webb has said that he is connected to the Mossad. And I think, well, that's really interesting. He's made this declaration, not hidden in plain sight. And I was having this email exchange, and there's this case to be made that there is a Mossad within the Mossad, that there is the old Mossad and the new Mossad. Just like there's factions inside of the FBI and factions inside of the CIA. And, that they're battling for power and for control. Now George Webb is being attacked by the New York Times because of his ongoing investigation into these things. And whatever happened with this thing down in, South Carolina, Is that where it is with the port and the dirty bomb? I can't keep up with all of these things to the point where I'm following about 5 or 6 things simultaneously in real time. But I try my best. As you'll see today, I try my best. But I have to ask the question, is any intelligence agency any good? Whether they're old or new or fresh and young or the new breed. If we look at the Mossad, okay, let's look at the Mossad and the CIA. They are relative newcomers to the realm of espionage, surveillance, and intelligence gathering. The NSA is even younger than the CIA. The CIA comes out of World War II, where they have the OSS. And the OSS is the seed for the CIA. And where do they get the original sort of members of the CIA? People that, well, first of all, they come out of MI6 and they come out of Germany. Reinhard Gehlen, that guy who was a trainer that was a leftover from Operation Paperclip. But they got the bulk and the majority of their first wave CIA operatives through Skull and Bones. There's a movie I highly recommend. It's called The Good Shepherd. Many years ago, I did a review on it from an astrological perspective and a meta perspective on my website. You can look it up. Robert Phoenix, The Good Shepherd. It's a pretty good article, and it has to do with Matt Damon and Robert De Niro, who is the producer of the I think De Niro actually directs that movie. It's a rare Robert De Niro direction. Anyway, check that out. So the CIA comes into play post-World War II. So we're really talking around 1949, 1950, 51, right around there. Okay. Israel gained its independence in 1948. So the birth of the CIA and the Mossad are almost simultaneous. They're almost happening at the same time. So one would think that there would be some form of either competition or collusion. The KGB has a bit of a jump on the Mossad and the CIA, as the KGB was beginning to kind of form itself under Stalin pre-World War II. And that was just part of the outgrowth of the Bolsheviks and their intense need for information and listening so they could turn people in who did not like the government. And that's how the KGBs really started. So these, to some extent, these agencies are the bastard children of the end of the Cold War, or actually the end of World War II. Because let's face it, I mean, after World War II and World War I did not happen that far apart. I mean, it was about 7.5 years between the two wars? It was not a very long period of time. So the planet was not going to be ready for another third world war anytime soon. You know, they could have smaller wars, which obviously we've seen. So if they were not going to have a third world war, what would they need? They would need intelligence agencies in order to manage reality, in order to manage information, in order to start a little war here and there if they needed to start one. This is a almost like a global mandate in some ways. So let's say you were 25 or 30 years old in 1949, 1950. Let's say you were 30 in 1950, which was 67 years ago. You'd be 97 years old. So we've gone through essentially 2 generations of membership in these intelligence services. The first wave would have been from 1950 to 1975. So if you were, again, 30 years old in 1950, and a lot of these people tended to be a bit older than that, but if you were 30 years old in 1950, by 1975, you were 55. And by 1980, you were 60, and your days of intelligence gathering were probably getting to be mostly behind you at that point. So if we want to look at like the quote-unquote old version of that group, that would have been sort of like chapter 1, roughly 1950 to around 1975, 1980. Then what's interesting is around 1975, and I've actually pointed this out as it relates to Stanford Research Institute, we have the human potential movement, which comes around 1971, roughly 71, 72, on the heels of the 60s. And, of course, even the term human potential comes out of Stanford. So inside of the intelligence agencies, this would be second wave, right around that point in time. So let's say you were 30 years old in 1972, 73, which at that point you're kind of right in the middle, you're kind of in your prime. And so we go out 25 years from that, and we're at, 1995. 1995, right around 95, 99. That's kind of the end of this like second wave of intelligence, right? So now we have the third wave, which would be right around 1998, 99, and going into the next 25 years. And of course, there are going to be, people that will overlap some of these eras. But just like, we have sea changes in generations, there are sea changes in generations inside these groups. So I would agree that there would be an older group and a younger group, but I'm doing this kind of parsing out of the timeline because there'd be at least three of these sorts of generational entities inside of intelligence agencies. And there could be some variation, but every new generation thinks it's got better ideas and thinks it's more equipped to tackle the time that it's in using the technology of the time. It's just the nature of youth. It's the nature of youth. But the difference between the Mossad and the CIA is, even though a lot of people think the CIA has been co-opted by the Mossad, is that the Mossad is dedicated to a certain form of nationalism in the entity known as the nation-state of Israel. One would say that the CIA does the exact same thing for the United States, and that's not the case. The CIA tends to have government contracts and corporate contracts. My experience of the CIA, not that I have any really, but my feelings about it and what I've been able to piece together is that they're guns for hire. And if Chevron wants to hire the CIA, or if DuPont wants to have a CIA connection and people inside the CIA doing work for them in certain countries, gathering certain amounts of information, my sense is that's what takes place. So I think there's a difference. I think there's an ideological difference between the two groups. I could be completely wrong, right? I could be completely wrong, but that's my sense. That's my sense. Because I think the Mossad's sole intent is to defend, support, and empower the country that employs it. That's my sense. I don't get a sense that that even if it's the new Mossad, I don't get the sense that there are these, amazing universalists. I mean, who knows? I could be wrong, Maybe there's like a secret sect inside of the Mossad that are eating MDMA all the time. And they've had their consciousness switched on, and, George Webb is one of their acolytes. I don't know. Could be the case. But I don't know. I tend to think that there is, how do I say this? I think there's an orthodoxy to the Mossad that might be not present in other agencies. Do you know what I mean? That's my sense. Again, I could be wrong. I did find this website because, I'm always trying to, what do we got here? Somebody left me a comment already. What is the comment? Insightful. Oh, there we go. Let's see. I did find this website. Let me see if I can find it here now. I had it right up here. Oh, that's not it. That's my website. Hold on. What do we have here? Okay. It's a website called the International Reporter. I've never seen this website before. But it looks interesting, It's somebody who's putting stuff together and doing their best to untangle this crazy world we're living in. And the editor says, we will no longer be posting any videos by George Webb. And here's the brief piece here. I might even just play the video. He has lived up to his Mossad pledge by way of deception. We shall wage war. There is no great Mossad. 9/11 was a lot of stuff. I don't know what he means by that. Let me just. I haven't even heard this video, but he's posted this. So let's just go improv and punch this thing up. Here we go.
Harvest
Well, there you hear, right from the Webb's mouth. I find that to just be really bizarre. I find it's sort of like, well, you know, there's the really, really bad Mossad. They're taking organs and blood diamonds and then there's the human trafficking. That's the bad, but the good old Mossad, you know, the good old Mossad that was really just kind of into, you know, extorting people and taking politicians over to Israel and taking them out and whining and dining them and throwing them a roofie and getting them in bed with the 13-year-old and taking pictures and then making sure that they were going to do whatever they were told to do. That was the good Mossad. Those guys were the good guys. Okay? All right? There wasn't any organs being swapped on the dark web. No, it was just kind of, you know, medium to high level extortion where governments were held hostage by gathering information. Even if the information that was gathered was done against the will of the person. It was just light stuff. Just light stuff. And you know, I'm part of that group. We were the really good spies. I don't know. I can't sign off on this. I'm sorry. And I may lose listeners. There may be people who will say, I don't know what to do with him. I don't know what to do with him. But I'm not buying this act. And it's getting real confusing now. Now he's arrested for drunk driving. And look, he could be the best guy in the world. He may have really pure intentions. Really pure intentions. Good-looking guy. Looks like Robert Redford, doesn't he? Doesn't he kind of click that Robert Redford? Oh, yeah. What if George Webb looked like Kevin from The Office? And what if he talked like Kevin? I'm part of the old Mossad. I'm not part of the organ harvesting. No way. I'm sorry. I'm getting carried away a little bit. Okay. So, yeah, I'm not. I don't know. I'm just not buying this. Let's look at the comments on this website. There's a few of them. Some of them are not great. Okay, there's more coming out now that I want to connect this to, and we're gonna go through about three or four different topics. And the person who sent me the email totally nailed one thing about all of this, is that there is an information war going on. We're at next level now, right? I mean, ever since the primaries and the election, we got to next level. And it was like WikiLeaks was the Maginot line. We crossed the line with that batch of WikiLeaks. There was a before with information, and there's an after of information. I mean, everything else that WikiLeaks had prior to that was nothing. The Bradley Manning stuff was okay, whatever. This is the big stuff. And who knows what WikiLeaks is anyway? You know, for a long time, I thought WikiLeaks was just CIA and Mossad and unlimited hangout. And it still could be. Still very well could be. But she was right. There is a significant war on information, as we will see, as we will break this down, and we will get to the truth in the next 50 minutes. But I'm going to be breaking this down into 5-minute segments so that you're going to have to come back and listen 5 minutes after 5 minutes. All right. Let's see. Let me see comments on this website. It's called the International Reporter.org. So Vicky M. Fisher Rasmussen writes, so you are no longer posting because you think the video made in the hotel room is a hoax. The editor says, I am no longer posting because he has admitted to being connected to Mossad. Therefore, I cannot trust the nature of his investigation as his loyalties are divided between the best interests of Israel and the best interests of the USA. I also found it extremely offensive when he flippantly referred to the new Mossad being involved in blood diamonds and organ trafficking as though all they need is a wrist slap for being naughty. I guess being involved in 9/11 also only requires a wrist slap. That's an important point. That is a very important point. This, while the great Mossad are the good guys. It also seems as though the Mossad has adopted the CIA's latest theme. There are good CIA and bad CIA. Trust me, I am good CIA. Looking back at history over the last 70 years, you have to ask yourself, are there any good CIA Mossad at all? Okay. All right. This guy brings up an interesting point. Have you noticed that George Webb and Robert Steele basically hit the scene at the same time? Have you noticed that? And Robert Steele is everywhere. Everywhere. He's on this show and this show. And I mean, my God. The only show he hasn't been on is my show. And then you have George Webb. So you have these kind of, well, I'm the good CIA guy. That's not George Webb. That's Robert. I'm the good. I can't do Robert Steele. Maybe I could. Anyway, he's the good CIA guy. He's the guy that knows all the insides and the outsides. And he's got the 10-point plan for Trump. I never trusted Robert Steele either. I guess I'm just not. I just don't trust. Maybe this is a deeper issue. Maybe I've got to look at my trust issues. Who do you really trust? Well, I trust my cats. I do. They don't eat my face at night. And they've been around for, I don't know how long, 5 years. So he goes on to say, looking back at history over the last 70 years, you have to ask yourself, are there any good CIA Mossad at all? You know, there may be. We don't know that. I'm going to just think that there are maybe a few people in those groups who might have chosen not to do something at a certain point in time or done something different so that we can have this semblance of the Matrix continue to replicate itself without too many disturbing factors. But let me ask you this, though. And I think this is an important piece to ask. If George Webb is all hot on uncovering this, like where is the 9/11 truth? Where is the blade for that Gordian knot? And maybe, that would be part of his video series. 300 episodes down the line, he might get to that. It's unusual. He admits that he deleted 54 of the first episodes because he got to the truth too quickly. Very strange. I guess you want to kind of piece people along. Here's this. This is along the lines of what my listener shared. This is a comment from the same website. Maturity has taught me that there is bad in every group of good people, every group of people. There is bad in every group of good people, and there is good in every group of bad people. Like the metaphor of the Eastern Indian Circle. Cannot recall its name. Sorry, the symbol for opposites called the yin-yang, where a circle is cut in two with a wave. It's called the yin-yang. blah, blah, blah. There is no pure good and there is no pure bad. This is true. This is true. I still don't know whether to trust him or not, but your site has given me additional information to think about. Take care. And the reply here is, thank you for your comment. As I've already mentioned, I found this offhand remarks about blood diamonds and organ harvesting offensive. Never mind any of the other issues. And he goes on and it says, Israel has been called out for organ harvesting of Palestinians who have died in that civil war that has been ongoing for 70 years. Many Palestinians who go to fetch the bodies of their families from Israeli morgues find them with body parts missing. You have approximately 60 minutes to remove organs after someone has died for them to still be used in any transplants. As things stand, and with the track record of both the CIA and Mossad talking about good and bad people becomes pedestrian in light of the crimes that have been committed against humanity since the end of World War II. This is when the intelligence agencies sprung up. By two intelligence agencies claim to come from the civilized world and are supposed to be there to protect and defend. If anything, they both have become a major threat to all populations around the world. That either one or the other or both should be involved in organ harvesting should be a flashing light to everyone as to the very situation humanity now finds itself in. Now, I know that George Webb has spoken out against this. So I don't think he is promoting organ harvesting, or he's forgiving the fact that it takes place. But I think by comparison, he's saying, well, these are the atrocities that the new Mossad is involved in. But the old Mossad, well, it was just, wasn't that. Wasn't those kinds of atrocities. The great Mossad. That is when we just blackmailed politicians, extorted them. Minor league stuff. Here's an interesting comment. Black Knight 135. Dear editor, I've read your explanations briefly, outlining your reasons for not featuring the video series itself. I can't argue any point because I agree with every observation you shared. I'm of a split mind on the detective drama played out before us. There are no mistakes made here by Mr. Webb. The only mistakes are made by those drawn into the illusion of candid, unguarded intimacy I felt and perceived as an ulterior motive driving the several narrative subtexts which come to surface briefly like a wink, nod, or tell, creating an impression that I was witnessing a psyop or a school play in real time. Not only is Webb not Jack Ryan, he isn't really interested in truth, in justice, or law and order in the ongoing battle of good over evil. No, I think this man is a rat. This is something else. So I request you to reconsider your position in this small way. The entire series is a lot more than it appears, and we have before us have to observe it objectively from this moment forward as it plays itself out. I don't know how you may approach it, but I think it over for a day or two. Then the editor comes back and says he has deleted a major portion of his earlier reports. Why is that? What were the key issues in the early reports that are not in the more recent ones? Perhaps someone who has the time and the inclination might want to investigate that. As I recall, a major part was Haiti. In the meantime, human trafficking continues. The blood diamond industry, in exchange for weapons, for terrorists in the interest of political instability, runs rife throughout Africa. Slavery is becoming the norm, not the exception. Women and children are sold like cattle at sex trade markets. This is true. Organ harvesting, I see, has become an industry that is fast excelling narcotics and profitability worldwide. This, all the while, U.S. politics plays out like a soap opera for American entertainment and a distraction from the very real evil that is gripping the world. I wish that there was much more interest shown in these issues as there are in Clinton's emails. FBI, nabs, Hillary Clinton lost, emails, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, this is just one website that has decided that they're going to turn off the web. And I'm going to be watching what happens with George Webb with intense interest, especially now that he's been arrested, and to see what goes on from this point forward. I'd also love to hear John David Oates do a little of his reverse speech on Mr. Webb. Now, we are in a war, an information war, an info war, as it were, presciently described by Alex Emmerich Jones, who has his big Megyn Kelly interview coming up this Sunday. That should be what's already been interesting. I'm sure you guys have been following a lot of, or some of which, some of this stuff that's been going on. So Megyn Kelly basically came down to Texas, and she was like, oh man, I'm obsessed with you. I'm so into you. Come on, let's go get steaks, and let's go fire guns, and let's have a Texan time together, Alex. It's interesting because Megyn Kelly's a Scorpio, and Alex Jones is an Aquarius. In an odd way, it's kind of the alchemical marriage in some ways, because Scorpio represents instinct, it represents the serpent, and Aquarius is the eagle. It's the eagle and the serpent. Instinct and vision. So Alex Jones and Megyn Kelly, what if they were soulmates? What if Alex Jones, he just went through all this like intensity with what's her name? Nichols. Kelly Nichols, is that her name? Kelly Nichols. And then he's got his new stripper yoga teacher, former grunge lead singer, escort, mother-to-be wife. What if he left her for Megyn Kelly? What if there was a National Enquirer, Megyn Kelly and Alex Jones have a torrid affair? Oh, my God. That's what we need. That is what we need. We need to have a sex tape with Megyn Kelly and Alex Jones. That's it. That's it. If we have a sex tape with Megyn Kelly and Alex Jones, I think that is the alchemical pivot for everything. It's almost like the timeline becomes like rendered back together, and we're in this other trajectory post Alex Jones, Megyn Kelly sex tape. It could have happened. She was here last week. It could have happened. If Alex really wanted to save the world, he would have made it happen. If Megyn Kelly really wanted to redeem herself, it would have happened. Anyway, apparently she came here with she was pleading with him because he didn't want to do the interview. And Megyn Kelly has, I guess she's been hired as, she works for NBC now, CNN, NBC. She's been hired as their hit person. Think of her as like Uma Thurman, hired by Quentin Tarantino and Kill Bill. Megyn Kelly is CNN, NBC's Uma Thurman. She's going to go out. She's going to literally castrate, right, the bills of our society. The first bill she went after was Vladimir Putin. The next bill she's gone after is Alex Jones. The way these first two interviews have gone off, she may not get to a third or fourth bill. Anyway, she came down here and she wanted to interview Alex and promised that she would give him a fair shot, a fair shake, because she wanted to get more bills. They used to be called Johns. They're bills now. She wanted more bills. How could you get more bills if you promised and pleaded with Alex Jones and said, I'm going to be your guy. I'm going to be your gal. She might be a guy. Some people think she's a guy. Anyway, I'm going to be your gal, and I'm going to do you right. I'm going to be fair. And then she came to Austin and decided that she wanted to do a gotcha and nail him on Sandy Hook. Because they want to switch that thing real fast. They're going after all the honeypots, right? This is what's happening. They're going after the honeypots, the pedophilia, the Seth Riches, Sandy Hooks. They're going to go after the Boston Marathon. They're going to go after 9/11 because they want to seal 9/11 and they don't want that thing opened up. Isn't it interesting that Robert Mueller, the guy who was heading the investigation on 9/11, Robert Mueller stepped into the FBI. He became the director of the FBI just about a week before 9/11 happened. And now here he is. He's got Trump under investigation. He is. Trump's under investigation now. And this thing could go on and on and on. It could go 2 weeks, a month, 2 months as we approach the Great American Eclipse on the 21st of August, which is conjunct Donald Trump's ascendant, and then Saturn direct just days after that. We are living in very, very intense and weird and strange times. Anyway, getting back to this information war. So she comes down here, and Alex Jones videotaped all 11 hours of them being together. He's got 11 hours of audio, and he's got 11 hours of videotape. So he's got everything. He's got the entire interview. And what we'll get is the redacted version of it. And see, now, if she came down here with her crew thinking that just going to get exclusive access to Alex and none of it would have been captured, think again, because whatever Alex Jones has been through over the last 6 months, which has been basically dragged through the streets, and I'm not saying that he didn't deserve some of it, but he got stung. He got stung with Pizzagate, and he's about to get stung with Sandy Hook because he's got all these references to Sandy Hook that are online. We live in an online world. It is the communal tribunal. That's what the online world is. So it's all there, right? So you can say anything you want. Well, I meant this, or I meant this, or I meant blah, blah, blah. You know what? It's like somebody should just come out and say, yeah, I think the whole thing is a fake, and I think these people are lying, and I don't care if it's insensitive, and I don't care if I get sued, and I don't care if you ruin my life and ruin my career. It's done. And I got people that are willing to back me up. Do you want to bring this out into the open? Do you want a dialogue about it? Let's go. Let's go find Robbie Parker. Let's go have a little sit down with Robbie Parker. Let's go. You know what I mean? But it's like look, I don't have any money. I really don't. I could use some more money today. You could help keep this ministry afloat alive and working on your behalf if you can reach down and give whatever you can, what your heart, what your spirit, and what your bank account, however humbly are capable of. You see, people who have a lot of money have a lot to lose. And so they're going to protect it. And when it comes to stuff like that, he's going to backtrack. And sorry, it's out there. It's on the public record. But there's a war going on, an information war. But Alex got stung with Pizzagate. And do you think he's going to get stung again? And I don't care what kind of gatekeeper, if he's new Mossad or old Mossad. Alex might be old Mossad, now that I think of it. Anyway, he's not going to let that happen. Another longtime listener, great guy, lives up in Minnesota, Joel. Joel sent me a bunch of material on leverage and how leverage is one of the keys to making things happen. Like if you're in a business deal and you have leverage, what are you going to do? You're going to use it, right? If you know that your client has to have 500 reams of paper by Friday, and you're the only person that can deliver those 500 reams by Friday, and it's Thursday, you've got leverage. Right? Especially if you know that nobody else can deliver within 24 hours. You've got leverage. or if you've got the product, like for instance, back a long time ago, when I was in the music distribution business, there was this techno hit called O Bombrata, which was a sample of Carl Orff's, Bombrata, right? The big Carl Orff piece. Anyway, they sampled it and they turned it into this techno hit. And there was this little company down in Florida called Radical Records, Radikal, Radical Records. And they started to print that thing like crazy. Carmina Burana. It was a sample from Carl Orff's Carmina Burana, and they created this techno thing. And I found out about it. I said, look, we got to get as many of these as possible. We've got to get like 200 copies of these singles. Because when we had them, we had something that people wanted, so we had leverage. And through that, we were able to stack on some other records. Like, well, we've got a minimum order, right, of, $200. And they'd be like, oh, okay. So they'd buy $150 worth of O Bombrata, and they'd throw in $50 worth of like other dance stuff that we had. That's leverage. And there is that in business it happens all the time. In relationships it happens all the time. People have leverage. It's unspoken. And there is a whole psychology around leverage, and it's one of the tools of a sociopathological society. And this is what these people work on. They work on and off leverage. Who's got more leverage? Is it Alex Jones with 11 hours worth of uncut, unfiltered Megyn Kelly footage? Or is it CNN NBC who's got 15 minutes of Alex Jones that they're going to use to completely obliterate him? And I look, I don't care if that's what goes on. That's what goes on. I'm kind of watching the whole thing, but it's an exercise in leverage. Watch the movie Battlefield Earth, which is based on the book Battlefield Earth by L. Ron Hubbard. It is a classically bad movie. It's one of the worst movies ever, but you can't stop watching it. It's kind of riveting in how bad it is. And one of the things that is talked about throughout this movie is leverage. The Cyclos use leverage against one another. Leverage. Speaking of leverage, we're not going to go there yet. I'm going to talk about some things happening in the commercial front. But what I want to do is I want to talk about something else. This is really interesting. Okay? Let me see if I can find this thing. Okay, we're done with that. Hold on. Come on now. What is this? No, it's the dark side. The dark side trader. What is this? And we'll get there, I promise. Okay, that's not it. I will arrive at my destination. Come on. There we go. Okay. No, that's not what I'm looking for. It will, hold on. There's that. Okay, found it. Thank you for your patience. This is an opinion piece, and it's coming out of the Boston Globe. And the opinion piece is Saudi Arabia is destabilizing the world. Oh, by the way, Michelle Carter, the young woman who told her boyfriend to kill himself has been found guilty of death. Guilty in suicide by texting. Whew. Guilty in suicide by texting. That's some Charlie Manson stuff right there. Okay, here is the op-ed on the Boston Globe. Saudi Arabia is destabilizing the world. Indonesia Muslims at Istiqlal Mosque in Jakarta on May 26th. Big picture here. Saudi Arabia has been working to pull Indonesia away from moderate Islam. Just a few months ago, the governor of Indonesia's largest city, Jakarta, seemed headed for easy re-election, despite the fact that he is a Christian in a mostly Muslim country. Suddenly, everything went violently wrong. Using a pretext of an offhand remark the governor made about the Quran, masses of enraged Muslims took to the streets to denounce him. In short order, he lost the election, was arrested, charged with blasphemy, and sentenced to 2 years in prison. There's Sharia law for you folks. This episode is especially alarming because Indonesia, the world's largest Muslim country, has long been one of its most tolerant. Indonesian Islam, like most belief systems on the vast archipelago, is syncretic, gentle, and open-minded. The stunning fall of Jakarta's governor reflects the opposite: intolerance, sectarian hatred, and contempt for democracy. Fundamentalism is surging in Indonesia. This did not happen naturally. Okay, there is an astrological component to this. This is an astrological component because Sagittarius represents what? Religion, right? It represents religion, philosophy, foreign countries, law. Sagittarius can be an incredibly open and funny, but also very dogmatic sign. And here in Saturn and Sagittarius, it's wedded, right? Saturn is wedded to Sagittarius. Retrograde, that it's a regressive or retrograde combination of Saturn, which is the government, and Sagittarius, which is religion. You go back to Pluto and Sagittarius when all this thing exploded. It all exploded in Pluto and Sagittarius, where all of a sudden they decided to weaponize Islam in a much bigger way. Not only did we have the weaponization of Islam, but as I've noted before, it was a time when the mega church was at the height of its power. And George Bush was being portrayed as some kind of Christian, which was a bunch of shit. But this is where we had Pluto and Sagittarius, and there was going to be this transformation around religion. And religion was going to be used as a point of transformation. And in that moment of time, it was what happened and where? New York City on what day? 9/11. Which happens to be, in my estimation, and I know there are a lot of people out there who are either atheists or they're theologists, right, or astrotheosophists or whatever. That's the birth date of Jesus, 9/11. Sananda Yeshua Emmanuel. That is the birth date. 9/11, the desecration of that day. I've done a lot of work on that day. That is the desecration date. And so who was supposedly involved in 9/11? There's all these Arabs, right? All these Arabs, where they had pictures and they had identities and they had fallen passports and they had the breadcrumb trails. There it was, and it led all the way, breadcrumb after breadcrumb after breadcrumb, all the way to Iraq, which was again a complete and utter lie. But here's what we had: we had Islam, and we had at that time was the height of Christianity in this country, right? It was in some ways like the next level of the Great Awakening. You had all these major Christians coming into power at that time. You know, Haggard was coming into power, and Ted Haggard and John Hagee and Haggard and Joel Osteen, and it was a very, it was a big time for Christianity, right? What was her name? Amy Grant. Anyway, so we have these two major religions, Twin Towers, right? Twin Towers, Christianity and Islam. And they were destroyed. And it's amazing now because there is this, because we're in Saturn retrograde again. We're in Saturn retrograde. We're looking back and we're thinking, oh, yeah, well, look who did 9/11. It was the Saudis. They're becoming the destabilizer of the world. That's because they have been turned loose, right? Wahhabist, Salafist has been weaponized and turned loose. And it's all part of what happened on 9/11/2001. But they weren't the ones that were doing it. And isn't it so fascinating that during the primaries, Trump was talking a lot about 9/11. He was talking about how it was the Saudis and the dancing Saudis and the dancing. And what does he do? He goes right over to Saudi Arabia and he starts to dance. He's doing that little dance, the sword dance. Narrative's changing. There is a war in information. It's so fascinating, and it's so cognitively dissonant, right? I mean, it could drive you fucking nuts. Oh, Saudi Arabia's our friend. Oh, Saudi Arabia did 9/11. How does that work? No, it's Qatar. It's Qatar. Now we're just going to shift it all over to Qatar. Poor little Qatar. Don't you feel sorry for poor little Qatar? Poor little Qatar. All the nation states in the Middle East are turning on poor little Qatar. I don't know. It's just a way to get to Iran, right? It's Iran. They're getting to Iran through Qatar. We got to get out of there. Let's get out. No, instead we're going to go over there and dance and sell, $400 billion worth of weapons and create the NATO for the Middle East. By deception, thou shalt wage war. Even Alex Jones says, Megan Kelly asked about the 9/11. There's portions inside of our government and portions inside of Saudi Arabia, blah, 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 who did 9/11. Hey, look a little bit closer. Look a little bit closer, and you'll find that there are groups, or a group that's comprised of just more than elements inside of our government. And Saudi Arabia, just a bit more, if you look hard enough. There's the war on information. I wonder where those guys chime in on the old Mossad, the great Mossad versus, where does 9/11 fit in there? Are they the body parts traders? Are they just the low-level government extorters? I don't know. Remains to be seen. So that's going on now. And Saudi Arabia, to some extent, is being disruptive. Although, again, it's probably government or intelligence agency backed. And, if you look into the House of Saud, you'll realize that they're not really Arabian. They're just not. Yes. I'm telling you, man, this is the Boston Globe. In the top 10 trending articles, Michelle Carter guilty in suicide by texting trial. Read the text messages in the Michelle Carter suicide texting case. Read the Facebook messages between Michelle Carter and Conrad Roy. Experts say Michelle Carter case revolved around words that can kill. Wow. That should be alarming, to be honest with you. What if James Hodgkinson, and let's just say, for instance, James Hodgkinson was the guy in the field with the rifle trying to kill Steve Scalise. Let's say it was him. What words do you think prompted him to carry that out? Was it words, or was it the symbolic beheading of the president as held up by one Kathy Griffin. And are these two all that different? Because we live in a world of highly, highly, highly suggestible information. Highly suggestible information. It's a strange world, I have to say. I mean, I don't follow like a lot of pop culture stuff. I try not to because I think I'd want to shoot myself. But at one point in time, a long, long time ago, when I was married and shared recreational time with my spouse, who was very involved in network television, we would watch The Bachelor. So I was familiar with the first few seasons of The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. Maybe the first few seasons. And that was it. I got off of the Bachelor train when the marriage ended. Maybe even before that. Maybe that's why the marriage ended. Maybe if I'd still watched The Bachelor. If I'd watched The Bachelor, maybe we could have saved the marriage. I did watch The Biggest Loser religiously, but that didn't help. Anyway, there's a new Bachelor out. I believe it's The Bachelorette, and there's a young woman on there who has the last name of Olympios. And there's a kind of this interesting scandal going on where there was a little moment in the pool where she did group sex with these four guys. She basically had an orgy with four guys in the pool. And they've got it all on tape, apparently. And she's claiming that she blacked out during the entire time. And out of the four guys, one of them happens to be black. And I hate to say it, but he's probably going to take the fall for this, although she'll wind up looking like an idiot because everything is on videotape. And why am I even talking about this? It's because it's such an utterly pathetic picture of the state of decline of our culture. It's just ridiculous. Like, that's a show that should have ended about 10 years ago. And probably shouldn't even, been on television to begin with. But it should have ended about 10 years ago. And here we are, still watching versions of The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. And there are people around these shows that have died. They've had big issues. And now it's basically turned into, a version of offline porn. Which really brings me back to the Megyn Kelly, Alex Jones sex tape. Anyway, I digressed a little bit because if you don't know who Michelle Carter is a young woman who had a boyfriend who was going through, his name was Roy, what's his name? Conrad Roy. And Conrad Roy killed himself because Michelle Carter was essentially hate texting him and psychologically destroying him. Boy. So he killed himself. Anyway, she's been found guilty of suicide by texting trial. I don't know how she's going to be sentenced around this, but that's brutal, man. That is the consciousless entity that has entered into our collective organelle, so to speak. All right, I wanted to talk about two major things that are happening in terms of purchases. Some of you might be aware of this, but Amazon has just bought Whole Foods, or they're getting ready to acquire Whole Foods. This is huge, by the way. This is Now, I don't know what this means for the future of Whole Foods, but I'll read you the headline here. Online juggernaut Amazon is buying Whole Foods in a deal valued at about $13.7 billion. A strong move made to expand its growing reach into groceries. Amazon.com will pay $42 per share for Whole Foods market, including debt. That marks an 18% premium to Whole Foods closing price on Thursday. So if you were holding Whole Foods stock at the beginning of the week, it's a good week for you. The deal comes a month after Whole Foods announced a board shakeup and cost-cutting plan amid failing sales, or falling sales. The grocery store operator was also under pressure from activist investor Jana Partners. The grocery chain, known for its organic options, has been facing increased pressure from rivals, including European grocery chain Lidl, LIDL, which is planning to enter the East Coast market, along with Aldi and Trader Joe's. So what they also fail to mention is people like, or stores like Target, Walmart, they've all gotten in on the organic game. Now, whether or not it's really organic or whether it's like lower standard level organic, Whole Foods had the sort of, basically what Whole Foods was Whole Foods was the metastasized version of the food co-op, which comes out of the 1960s. Back in the good old days, they'd have these natural foods and health food store co-ops, and Whole Foods comes out of that environment. It comes out of from Austin, Texas, and it was a very small store at one point in time, and it was all people sort of having equal amounts of sweat equity and keeping something open where they had local produce, and it just grew and grew and grew and grew. And it wasn't just Whole Foods. I mean, there were other versions of this all around the country, and Whole Foods became sort of this mutation of that model. It became this mega supermarket. But that's where this whole idea of, so it starts off right with this, and this is where the 60s are really interesting. Starts off with this idea that we're going to be organic, we're going to be small, we're going to know the growers, we're going to do all these things. Each family is going to put in time to work here each week, and so we'll get a discount, da 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 da. And that's great. That's totally great. And then what happens is we turn it into a store, and then we turn it into a store that becomes a couple of other stores, and the couple of stores become a statewide, chain, and then it goes national, and then it goes international. I've been to Whole Foods in London. I'm sure they have. I mean, I don't know if they have Whole Foods in Paris, but I've been to Whole Foods in London. So it really started with this idea, right, of the co-op. Now, what's the next level of that? The next level is you've got other stores who have nothing to do with that history or that evolution, and then now all of a sudden they're bringing that into their business model. They're kind of, Pac-Manning that business model. So we have this major paradigm shift. So Whole Foods lost, in many ways, its market share because of how successful it became. Once it became successful, other stores that had nothing to do with that market began to co-opt their model, right? So that's why they're failing. They don't know who they are anymore. It's like as Walmart and it was kind of interesting, right? Because Walmart and Target became more organic. Whole Foods decided to cut back on the organic and become more standard because they felt as if they were becoming too explicit in some ways, and they needed to expand their market share into the other direction. Anyway, Amazon has bought Whole Foods. What they're going to do with it, I have no idea. Maybe they'll have a fleet of drones that will fly Whole Foods products to your homes. Maybe that's going to be part of the plan. But that's big. That was a big acquisition. Another acquisition, which is smaller in terms of its media push, but equally big, has also occurred. And that sale was Google selling Boston Dynamics, which is their robot company. Back in the day when I was at Gaia doing my show, I did this piece on the Uranus and Aries and Aquarius and Ray Kurzweil and all this stuff about the Dark New Age. And one of the things that Google did is they bought up all these massive, well, they weren't massive. It was a massive buy-up. They were buying up all these best-of-breed robot companies and things that were connected to robotics. And Boston Dynamics at that time was the sort of the leader in creating robotics outside of the military-industrial complex. So Google bought Boston Dynamics, and they put Ray Kurzweil in charge, and they just sold Boston Dynamics. They sold Boston Dynamics to SoftBank. Now, I don't have the figure on this, but this is a really interesting purchase or sell. Number one, Google might be creating its own robot company internally, although there may be some kind of a non-compete, or they may be focusing on different aspects of AI and not necessarily the servo-mechano robotic version. But it's an interesting sell, and who they're selling it to is doubly interesting. SoftBank is the Japanese company that pledged, what was it, some crazy amount, like $30 billion or $350 billion when Trump became elected. They were like, yeah, we're gonna invest in America. We're going to invest in America. That was, I think it was around $300 billion. I could be wrong, $3 billion. I think it's $3 billion. 300 is a lot. Anyway, I'm sure somebody will correct me. But SoftBank says we're going to be a major player. This is one of the. I mean, Trump was like pounding his chest. He's being see what I've done, SoftBank. Well, one of the things that I was talking about at that time is like, okay, what is SoftBank going to do in the United States? And I thought to myself, they're going to build robots. That's what they're going to do. They're going to build robots. And this is going to, and I've been saying this for a long time now, this is going to be the next economic boom. Bada boom. Now, maybe this comes in and dovetails with what our good friend Cliff High has been saying for a while now, that that silver and Ethereum, right? Is that it? That silver was going to be the thing that was going to power the next revolution, the next technological revolution. That next technological revolution is going to be robotics. I'm telling you, robotics and AI, it's going to be a boom. It's going to happen. It's going to change everything during the Uranus and Taurus transit. Taurus is all about physicality and how we do things, how we interact with the material world. Now, remember what happened during the last time Uranus was in Aries. All the great inventions of the 20th century were invented. It doesn't mean that they were implemented, but it meant that they were invented. The implementation occurred over the course of the next two Uranus cycles, right? Uranus in what? Taurus. Uranus in Gemini. Uranus in Cancer? Yes. As well. But really, Uranus in Taurus and Uranus in Gemini. And we're about ready to go into Uranus and Taurus. So everything that has been sort of worked on and bubbling under the surface, boom, Uranus and Taurus. It's going to change how we interact with terra firma and reality. And SoftBank has just bought Boston Dynamics, which is, the robot company that created that creepy robotic dog and the creepy robotic human that you can't knock over. The dog that does 19 miles per hour. The Wildcat. Oh, it's the Wildcat. It's not a dog. It's a Wildcat. So, interesting. Google gets an infusion of cash. Now, maybe SoftBank, part of what they were saying was out of that $3 billion, we're going to give whatever it was to Google for Boston Dynamics. Hey, we've just made good on our pledge. It's an American company. And now we're going to go build robots, and there's going to be a boom, and then you're all going to be irrelevant, which could very well be the case. So we have two really interesting purchases, right? Google buying, SoftBank buying Boston Dynamics from Google, and of course, Amazon's acquisition of Whole Foods. Amazon, you know what Amazon's going to be? Amazon, did you ever watch The Roadrunner? I hated that cartoon. I hated it, but it was on Saturday mornings, and I was almost forced to watch it because there were other cartoons on during the Roadrunner hour that wasn't just the Roadrunner. So I sat through the Roadrunner so that I could watch the other cartoons, and hopefully, by chance, somehow, that Wile E. Coyote would get that Roadrunner and cook that Roadrunner, eat the Roadrunner. I hated the fact that he would go through all these extreme measures, which were quite interesting and funny in their own right, and never get the Roadrunner. And you knew it was going to happen. And you knew that at some point he was going to get run over by a train or fall off a giant cliff in the Grand Canyon, and somehow he'd be resurrected, reborn, and back on the case to get that pesky Roadrunner. Yep. Didn't like the Roadrunner so much. Anyway, as I go down memory lane, Amazon is going to be Acme. Acme was the company that Wile E. Coyote would buy all these crazy contraptions from. Acme did everything. Amazon is the new Acme. At some point, is Amazon going to run into antitrust laws? I don't know. Do they even exist anymore? I think they used all the antitrust fuel on Microsoft. Bill Gates got bitch slapped on that one, don't you think? Don't you think it was like the big boys came along and said, "Well, Bill, you did a mighty fine job here, making a lot of money. But, Bill, you're going to have to join our club." What? Yeah, you'll have to join our club. And if you join our club, you'll be even richer. If you don't join our club, we're going to ruin you. Do you think it might have had a little bit of the latter in terms of his antitrust suit? Maybe. I don't know. Because Bill Gates' father has been deep into stuff for a long time. He was involved with Planned Parenthood, and Bill Gates' father, deeply involved in Planned Parenthood, and big executive at Boeing, and so there's this connection between the eugenicists and his dad, and the aerospace industry, or at the very least, the aerojet industry. Anyway, it could be that that's what happened. But we haven't had a good antitrust suit in a long time. And I don't think Amazon is going to get one anytime soon. I think Jeff Bezos is playing ball. By the way, Jeff Bezos is one of these guys like Richard Branson and Elon Musk that wants to have a breakaway civilization. If you've ever seen the movie Elysium, Jeff Bezos wants to be one of the guys that lives in orbit of a planet Earth. So the whole idea would be to turn planet Earth into this nature park. They want to turn Bezos's idea for Eden is to turn Earth into Costa Rica, and that the elite would be living somewhere in some kind of orbital relationship with the Earth. And then you could come down and go experience the Earth every now and then in all of its pristine glory and then head back up to Spaceland. I think that's what Bezos wants, if I'm not mistaken, with his version of his own space program. All right. Well, we got a little far out there today, don't you think? In terms of the Friday FARCast. Did some funny voices. Looked at some interesting, a little more volume. Oh, I got some comments here, a little more volume. I'm sorry. I'm trying to speak as loudly as I can. When I look at my meters, they're up pretty high. How's that? How's that for volume? Is that better? If you're in the chat room, is that better? If it's better, then I think what I'll do is I'll do the whole show all over again with higher volume, more volume. How does that sound? Let's see. In Building 7, if it's Building 7 the third, the Zionists. Ooh. Thanks, James, for the affirmation. The affirmation confirmation. Great point. Great point, Mr. Logo. Yeah, it could be. Absolutely. It could be the third pillar. Although Building 7 is more along the lines of like a Saturn cube versus the twin pillars, right? Okay. I'm going to keep these levels at this volume. I'm going to do, I'm coming strong. I'm doing the Sunday night show. I'll be doing the Sunday night show in full volume. How's this? All right. So we've covered a lot of topics over the last 90 minutes. And I hope I've entertained you, enlightened you, given you a few laughs and chuckles along the way. As we move into this weekend, it's going to be super hot here in Austin, Texas. We're going to hit 100 tomorrow. Hey, if you're in Austin, I'll be down at the park downtown. I'll be in and around Barton Springs all day tomorrow. So if you're in the area and you want to drop by, say hi, just come find me. I'll be the 6'3" white guy, very white, with my kid. That's about it today. I wish I had some kind of blazing epiphany that I can send you off with today. Something you could wrap your head around and wrap your teeth around, chew it off, and get some good nutrition out of it. I'll do my best. So if we're in an information war, which I believe we are, and thanks to Judy who brought that up in the email, I completely agree. If we're in an information war, theoretically, in each war, there's a side to be on. Unless, of course, you're Switzerland, in which case you're always neutral and you never get your hands dirty, but somehow manage to retain all your guns, all your gold, all your chocolate, and your homogeneity. So there may be something to be said for being neutral. Because based on what I'm seeing around Switzerland, as neutral as they'd like to be, they clearly have managed to retain their self-interest. The key to everything is Switzerland. All right, boys and girls, have a great day. Have a great weekend. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay open to what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix, and you've been listening to the Friday FARCast. Thanks for listening. I really appreciate you all.
Okay, let's do it.